will have to say application experience. I guess it was with Sukan, the final round in person. Everyone says Sukan is very scary. He will grill you. And he actually did. But because we heard his reputation, so we prepared. And then, thank goodness, he was asking about a lot of industry specific stuff, which I know very well. So I thought we prepared well. And then by the end of the meeting, it didn't feel like grilling per se. I don't feel like he wanted to make us feel bad for the sake of it. He would just wanted to know more about the company, which I feel like the grilling was done in a very respectful way. So I like that part. Yes.
What stood out to me was it's a founder-led program and VC, which is honestly quite rare in Southeast Asia. And so I thought, okay, let's just apply and see how it goes.
So I saw one of Sukan posts on LinkedIn, and I was actually leaving him a async message, so to ask about advice on how to structure a fundraising and things like that. And didn't think he's gonna respond, but he actually responded. He gave some pretty legit advice. And then I met him when he was hosting a Iterative event in Vietnam, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you just apply?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And it seems like the right timing as well, because the ticket size is a good match for what we need. And it seems like Sukan and Brian, they really know what they're doing. So
I applied for Iterative because I attended Sukan's office hour during Women's Week, and he gave me some feedback that was really on point, and then I went ahead, executed it, and the results was exactly what we expected. So I thought it would be really cool to get his guidance and then people like him for a prolonged period of time, and I think that would really supercharge my company's growth.
So that's a bit interesting. I applied and then I was rejected, essentially because I just started working on it a few weeks back, and there was very little validation I had when I applied. But by the time Brian reached out to me with the rejection, I had some sort of validation. I had built an MVP, so I just dropped them an email reply saying that this my progress so far, and maybe let's have a chat. I was very much ready to be like, I'm not gonna hear back again, because everybody, most of the VCs go so much at the structure, but I like that Iterative is much more case by case basis. They don't have a very rigid structure of how they look all the companies through one lens.
The fun thing about Iterative is that even if I met Sukan before, but I never really properly pitched. So the first round interview was with Kathy. And Kathy, it seems like she just studied my company, and I didn't have to go through, go in depth in the industry knowledge. Then next, it was with Brian. I did not have to repeat what I said to Kathy to Brian. And lastly, it was with Sukan. And it just felt like every single interview that I had was a step up. They're just trying to know the company more, knowing us more, instead of the general kind of experience when you meet with VC is that you have to repeat yourself every single time when there's a new person in a room. I think that's probably 95% of the time, but Iterative was very professional. I feel very respected as a founder. So that's why I thought the interview experience was fantastic.
I think the first interview was with Mook from the investment team. We did some introduction, it's like a very standard discussion what funds in VCs. But interesting thing is I had great feeling about the conversation like immediately. and she is great. Like even this afternoon she actually helped us talk to a telco in Thailand about business. So it was like amazing so far.
So we did prepare a presentation, and then when we got on the call with Sukan, within the first 10 seconds, he was like, "Oh, this is my style. I don't go over the presentation. Just gonna go directly into it." So I was pretty taken aback by that.
The final interview with Sukan, I think, was like the final nail in the head because he joined the call and I was very much ready to do a pitch presentation. And I didn't expect the GP of a VC to know everything about my company because I was just another applicant, right? And he just joined the call and he said, skip all of that. I know about your company. I've gone through your website, your Loom video. I've seen your previous conversation. And he just started asking specific questions, which you would only be able to ask if you really understand what I'm doing.
So Brian is amazing, and he asked some pretty tough questions, though. But yeah, I think we got some good answers to those.
During the interview with Suken, it was pretty challenging. Like, he definitely questioned us on pretty, difficult things, and kind of challenged us to kind of think more holistically about the business, like what is our focus. And we didn't expect that, so we got grilled a bit, and that was interesting. Yeah.
Then another call with Sukan, and which is the most surprising experience so far. It was like most of our conversation was about how I'm gonna see the market in 10 years. So that's basically the only problem that we talk about, right? We don't really dig into business and metrics and all that. It's just about how I'm seeing the future, which is like very unique experience for myself.
Most of the programs over here do say that, they really want to support founders, we want to back founders. And I really was thinking that, okay, probably the best thing I'll get out of this program is going to be money and nothing else. But I think over there, I started thinking, you know what, probably there's a lot more value that I'm going to get out of this apart from money.
A lot of investor calls that we are on, it's usually like a 45-minute pitch, and no one's talking except the person presenting, which is usually the CEO. So it was usually a very dry conversation, and usually those conversations you can tell that they're really not interested. I think maybe they're just doing their job and just collecting information, especially if it's maybe at the associate level. And so we found that very much it was not that way. Interrupted, engaged, asked questions, cut us off, that type of stuff is a signal that investors really are listening to what you're saying.
I will have to say application experience, I guess it was with Sukan, the final round in person. Everyone says Sukan is very scary. He will grill you, and he actually did, but because we heard his reputation, so we prepared, and then thank goodness, he was asking about a lot of industry specific stuff, which I know very well. So I thought we prepared well. And then by the end of the meeting, it didn't feel like grilling per se. I don't feel like he wanted to make us feel bad for the sake of it. He would just wanted to know more about the company, which I feel like the grilling was done in a very respectful way. So I like that part. Yes.
The only advice I'm gonna have is to really think deeply about the questions that you already gave a good rundown of what to expect, what kind of questions is there, and there's some prelim questions to fill out. So I think take some good time to really think through the items, because that's going to be important regardless of if it's for an iterative application or it's for the business in general. Sooner or later, we must think about these problems anyways. Right?
Just apply.
The best advice and the best thing that you can display is perseverance and growth. Just because you talk to an investor and they don't respond right away, or they respond slowly, or even if they reject you, there's no reason to not continue being proactive and growing your business and updating them when you have something to update you on. That's generally how this ecosystem is, right? You have to do sales well, and fundraising is a part of sales. And so if you find that investors are not showing a lot of interest, don't give up, just keep going. And so I would give that advice for Iterative, especially because that was our experience too. We could have just given up and said, hey, crap, it was a tough interview, we answered a question so poorly, we didn't expect the challenge, we definitely didn't give the best response, so let's just move on to the next thing. And we didn't do that. We continued to ask good questions for Sukan, and he kind of responded with other questions and responses. Find that relationship with Sukan or Brian or any investor you go speak to, and be proactive. And so just the small point is that when Sukan had an event in Vietnam. We saw that a lot of the people who he came to meet, it wasn't even at the event. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. So, show up for the stuff, and then people really appreciate people who show up and are proactive.
Treat it like same thing like YC application, right? It probably take people a couple days to write it. Same thing for iterative application. Think about it thoroughly. Treat it like an exercise, how you want to build your company in the future. Don't treat it like interview. Like say whatever you need to say, being authentic, I guess. I think that will be my advice.
Just be super real. Everyone at Iterative is trying to help you. And so the best value you can get out of the application itself is to consider this just think of it as your program has already started and you're seeking feedback and support from the partners. Just talk about how you think about your company and your startup. I think that's probably just takes away all the fear and all the nervousness out of it, and it will be much more fruitful.